Work it, make it, do it, makes us.
How are you doing, guys, today? All good? I know it's challenging time slot because it's just before the lunch. Are you hungry? Okay, I will try to basically finish on time, so I won't be like, in between the basic need, which is food, and the other basic need, which is knowledge, obviously. So, okay, before even I start, because I see that some people are passing by, I have a question for you guys. Do you use Twitter? Okay, few of you do. Okay, so there is like my hashtag over here. So please feel to tweet. Also, this is the best way to contact me. I'm really bad in responding to emails. So if you have any questions, just please feel free to tweet me. Okay, so what we will be talking today? Refactoring, but the user stories refactoring. So what that actually is. So this will be the topic around the requirements and making the requirements in a way that are meaningful. So we'll try to change a bit of our approach in a way that makes our life easier and basically better. My name is Kasia Mrowca. A few words about myself. I'm really strong in terms of the agile community. I was co-organizer of the Agile in Europe Krakow. Right now I'm based in London, and basically you can also see that I have a blog, so again, recommend checking out the content. You can try email me, but as I said, Twitter is the thing that is the best way to contact. Okay, before I even go further, again, questions. So how many of you are writing the requirements? Some of them. Good. So how many of them are reading requirements? Okay, there are some hands that are not up. So I guess that sometimes what happens frequently is like, okay, we have something, we have some documentation, maybe we have some user stories, but what we do, we rather talk about the requirements, not really using the stuff that we written down, sometimes because it's simply not understandable, or the information that should be there are not there, or are presented in a way that makes no sense. So judging by the hands that were not raised, I think that it might be the reason there as well. A few follow-up questions. How many of you are developers? Majority of the room. Do we have any testers? One. Okay, good. Do we have any UX, UI designers here? One as well. Good. Do we have any product owners, project managers, business analysts? Oh, a couple of hands, like around five. That's good. Good representation. So that's good. This will allow me to tailor a bit my talk to basically suit everyone who are in the room. So a bit of the story myself. So I start from working in the IT department, which was internal. And work was super easy. Why? Because we can really easily refine the requirements by talking with people. So there was like no problem. Then I moved to the software house company. We had multiple clients, so we need to basically compromise in order to deliver customer agnostic solution. And again, sometimes we had a trouble with actually discussing requirements. Why? Because we had an army of people responsible for requirements, like product managers, product owners, salespeople, marketing people, and some other chain of customer relation people. Everyone were somehow gathering requirements and inputting to maybe some documents. Maybe we had the user stories or other things that were meant to help us with the requirements. But again, the chain suddenly got longer. So again, I would like to know a bit more about you guys. How many of you are working in internal IT departments? Okay, some hands up. Okay, how many of you are working in a way that you deliver software, but for companies that are buying it? So they are like external. I would say that half and half. Okay. Okay, so I have experience in both. So it means that I moved to consulting, and right now I'm delivering PowerPoints. No, joking, obviously. I'm working in consulting, but small disclaimer, those opinions that I will present here are my own, and hopefully will allow you to see the context around the basically landscape you are in and allow you to adapt in a way that you can reuse the requirements, maybe less standard way that we usually do. Okay, so what will be our journey today? So first of all, we need to answer, are we in troubles? Because maybe we are using already some backlog items that we decided to call user stories. And maybe we use the format and we should be fine because every book says, oh, you need to do user stories or you need to do use cases or whatever else. So we should be fine because we are using them, right? Then we will take a look about a bit of the project management scenes that lead to the requirements that are not really understandable, and then we will figure out the solutions. Okay, so again, important thing, context is a king. So my examples will be based mainly on the more challenging bit, which is working in a software house or basically working where you don't have the direct cooperation with customer possible, or you have multiple customers or basically chain of people between you and customer. So this is the context where my examples will be based. Okay, so let's move forward. So maybe before even I ask this question around the issues with the requirements, I just wonder how many of you know what user stories are? Okay, majority of people. And is it like anyone in the room who don't know what user stories are? Okay, so because I see that some people are hesitating. So user stories are meant to be the items that together should deliver the feature of the application. And again, this should be like small item that we can program in a certain time box. Usually, we are working in sprints. Sprints, it's period of time where the team is working on delivering particular requirements. And again, user stories should be constructed in a way that it's decoupled. You can deliver it without any other dependencies. So it's like nice part of the functionality that will just work after the time box, after you release it on the production or the test environment. So we can like simplify this like the line item that we need to deliver in a certain time period of time. The question is, okay, we have the backlog, again, this difficult word. Does anyone in the room have a trouble with understanding word backlog? Okay, don't see hesitating face, but maybe just in a nutshell, it's a list of things that we need to do in particular time box. So again, let's say that we have 2 weeks and we have 15 line items to do in order to make the particular part of the functionality ready and be able to deliver it in the production. Okay, so we have the basically requirements in the backlog. And the thing is, okay, where is the problem? Is we have any troubles with this? So this is the part when usually we are sometimes struggling to notice that if we have a backlog with 10,000 user stories, it's not necessarily the best way, right? Or basically 10,000 items to do or some other ridiculous big number. So that's why right now I will just take a look on the possible troubles that we might have in the product management space that lead us to the poor quality of the requirements itself. So we have the trouble with actually understanding and maybe executing them. Okay, so first of all, roadmap. This is something that it's actually really good because we know where we are heading. The biggest trouble is actually roadmap commitments. So let's imagine the situation that we have planned our 10,000 user stories. In a sense that we discuss them, we more or less understand what we are building, and we put them to the, like, let's say, Excel spreadsheet or something that is actually linear. So what sometimes happens, we have like project managers that decides, oh, actually, this has an order. Let's put a date on it. And then suddenly from the list, we have a commitment, and someone after 2 weeks will just go to us and say, oh, hello, I've seen this spreadsheet, and there was a date next to this particular feature. Why it's not there? So this is also like the communication issue. I will talk about how to solve it and how to make a roadmap in a way that no one will be tempted to put a date on it, because this is dangerous. Why? Because we suddenly do not have flexibility, right? So let's say that we are working for a bank. And let's say that right now we don't yet have the fingerprint login because it's the new functionality on the market and no one even thought that it would be available. And let's say that we need to enhance our application for the new login mechanism, because it's like nice and competitive feature to be able to log in via fingerprint, right? So if we have the commitments, we will be able to squeeze it in 2020. If we have the flexibility, because our backlog is small and we don't have long commitments that someone is actually waiting for us because there's a dependency on the deliverables that we are doing, we can easily switch the order and embed new functionality in with relatively small impact. Also, what does it mean that someone spent hours on planning this? And this in our 2017 year, actually, it's like, we need to be flexible. Technology is moving really fast. We have a lot of innovations. We are encouraged to do innovations. If we have no flexibility on changing the order of things, it's really hard to innovate, because the new idea you had today, it will be obsolete in 2020. So this is one of the issues. Another one. As I said, it's nice to have some requirements, because I've seen also the projects where we had the blank sheet and we actually do not know what we should do. But trouble is with the size. So what happens if we have too much stuff on our plate? We can't see the priorities, right? And to be honest, if you have too many of the requirements as the line items, you need an army of product people or business analysts or other people who are actually managing this thing. They have starting to have the issues with communicating within each other, because then suddenly they need to agree between the priorities. So it started to be really challenging. There is no visibility, and there's also no way to progress. Again, I was one of the projects when there was like 5 business analysts, and maybe, guys, let's try to guess how many developers. Any guesses from the room? 4. Okay, no? 1. No? A bit more?
2.
Yes, 2. So 5 business analysts, around 1,020 user stories, something like this, and basically 2 developers, and business was really surprised why development was slow. Mystery solved. I guess we need to have more developers who are actually coding than people who are planning. So this is like also general advice. Again, we can ask, okay, why this issue actually exists? So business wants to feel confident that we will deliver the functionality. So they want to have everything captured, right? And they don't really understand that maybe the requirements will change, so this is obsolete work. So this is a bit of the education and conversation and building the trust between the parties that, okay, if we have smaller chunks and those stuff, we keep them, but high level, we don't have to have small details 2 years ahead. It will actually speed up the process and make the whole thing easier and smoother. Okay, next problem is user stories. Why is this actually the problem? Well, we are told that agile solves all problems. It's just magical cure. There is probably someone who will say, okay, I was on agile training. It was online. It took me 2 hours to fill it. So now I'm an expert, and I will tell you now you need to use user stories. And it has like format. And in order to fill the format, we can do it really easily. And now it solves all our issues, and basically Word is solved. So basically, how many of you guys saw stuff like this in their lives? Exactly. So this doesn't actually save our Word. I would say that it makes it more miserable. Why? Because we really want to be more flexible, agile, and deliver on time, and we think that if we put the template in, it will just work. No, sometimes if we really don't know what to write, it's better to leave one-liner or even 2 words login and detail it down later than force the format that doesn't bring any additional value to you, right? Because idea behind those things is actually asking the questions and understanding what we are doing, not really filling the format really blindly, right? Okay, another question. How many of you are using agile in daily basis? Oh my goodness, whole room. That's good, I guess, right? So maybe I just move further to more examples of the quality user stories. Another one, it starts to be a little better, right? As a transport planist, I want to have all planning functionality from previous system to efficiently plan. It's better. We have some goal. We have no clue maybe what was the previous planning system. Maybe it was Excel. So let's rewrite the Excel. It's the magical cure for every problem, right? So again, this is trying to understand the questions, but as you can see, it's not really helping us. On the one hand side, we have at least a persona who is like, want to do something. But on the other hand, like all planning functionality doesn't make a lot of sense. So going further with the examples to show you the granularity we would like to head to. Okay, as an email sender, I want to be able to send emails to efficiently communicate, right? This is, again, slightly better, but we don't know if it's like maybe marketing person that needs to send like multiple bulk emails, or maybe it's like private person that actually, sends 1 email a day, or maybe 2, or maybe as myself, ignore emails. Who knows? And what is the efficiently communicate? Do we need to measure it somehow? Or what is the idea behind? So again, this is a pretty undefined. And by the way, this is just showing that you can misuse the format. Even the best format and the best ideas behind sometimes are misused. And let's have another example. So as a tourist, I want to get ticket prices from different airlines so that I can compare the prices. That is like decent user story because we have a person defined. We have the information around the ticket prices. We know that the aim of the person is like finding the basically comparison. So I probably can find the lowest price. Trouble is that it's still not perfect. Why? We are missing acceptance criteria. I'm like maybe not willing to wait 2 seconds to get my ticket price because, 21st century, I'm getting impatient if I click and I need to wait 1 millisecond to retrieve the results. So there is a multiple questions behind this that still need to be answered. So general message over here is format can help. Even if we construct the user story in a good way that it's more meaningful, we still need to ask the questions around what are the acceptance criteria that will make this user story more meaningful for the person, and then we'll be able to deliver it appropriately. Okay, so what's the next issue? Sometimes we also are, we are doing Agile by the book or Scrum by the book or even more. And there is written that we need to have tasks written down to every user story. So someone decided, okay, guess what? Actually, we always do the same task, right? We do design, code, test, deploy. Let's have everywhere the same tasks. And again, it's just obsolete thing that we just feel and doesn't bring us much of the value. So we also should think around maybe we need those tasks so that next person who will be, for instance, finishing our code once we are on holidays is able to understand what, classes we used or what kind of the functionality is already there or things like that. So basically bringing the tasks when you actually know that they will bring some value in. So again, always think if the stuff that you are doing is bringing value to other people and your process, because otherwise the process just becomes heavy, and we are starting to be everything what Agile shouldn't be. The basic philosophy behind Agile is making it super light and super transparent and flexible, right? So if we build a lot of processes and a lot of stuff that actually are not bringing any value, maybe we shouldn't do it. Maybe we need to adapt the things that are suggested by the books to our reality. Okay, so let's basically quickly recap what are the root problems of having like the requirements that we don't want to read or we are actually not even bothered to open. So first of all, scary commitments. We are already, starting with knowing that our roadmap is like 5 years ahead. We are in an agile way doing the iterations. However, we have no flexibility, which is basically not agile at all. Our backlog is just too big. Basically, we have no visibility around the priorities. No one knows what is there. Maybe there is something important over here, but again, we can't see it. We have a lot of obsolete tasks that we cannot basically have any value from it because they are just, copy-paste and they are the same. So all those things just suggest that these issues starts far before even the user stories are written, right? Because those things basically are embedded in our culture and in the way that we are doing stuff. So how we can actually change those things? So let's go to the more like thriving and more, exciting part, which is the cures. So I complained a lot. So let's now see what we can do to make the stuff better. So roadmap itself, right? So why we have the 1,000 user stories in the backlog size and we have the commitments, we have no clue how to keep the vision. So someone just goes for the meetings and okay, I have the requirements in the document, so let's put them in the backlog as the user stories, right? What we can do, it's for instance product tree. This is the inspiration for the book called Innovation Games, which I adapted slightly, but basically I really encourage you guys to check out this book because there's plenty of games you can implement yourself in a company, adapt them and use them. So what this product tree actually does, when we have the meeting and people are throwing ideas around what the software should look like, we can gather it in a way that it's not linear. So what we have inside is the current time box. So let's say that we are working in 2-week sprints. It could be like 1 sprint, 2 sprints, 3 sprints, depending how much you are comfortable with. And everything else, it's high-level ideas that are somewhere to be planned and defined. So how you are actually constructing it. So again, it's really good to have in a room business people, sales people, development team, maybe some security people, maybe some infrastructure people, and so on and so forth. So basically spectrum of the stakeholders to start talking about stuff that we need to do. Because frequently people from business won't know that, oh, by the way, we need 2-factor authorization because we have sensitive customer data. Business people won't not necessarily know it, but security partners will know. So that's why we also take this into consideration. Okay, so what are the branches? Branches can be categories or basically modules. If we do it that way, it's easier for business to understand that we cannot have dependencies between the branches because naturally trees not merging and then unmerging, right? So if you want to have like more microservices architecture and want to decouple a part of the application, this is good actually starting point because we can visualize how to make the things that are like basically not dependent with each other. This is how it looks in real life. Again, how to make it efficient. I would recommend to have the high-level ideas pre-prepared, put and categorize, and then on the meeting review them and add a bit of more, because then it will be just efficient, will take you less than an hour, and people will collaborate really easily, making certain that their ideas are captured. Especially it's important for business because then suddenly once they have the sticky note put somewhere on the tree, they know, okay, my requirement is there, it won't disappear, no one will forget about it. If I just send an email or just have a meeting about it, they will not necessarily feel comfortable about, okay, do they really do it? Or maybe just was hearing and, they will be stubborn and won't deliver it. So this is the way of doing the conversation. So you may ask, okay, what's the next step? So everything which is inside the line, it's our current type box. So it is the ideas we would like to detail down in order to know what to deliver. But usually it's too many of them already. So what we can do next to even further narrow down the things that we actually need to deliver. So this is the metric that I call love versus ROI. We are usually not charities, so we want to have some returns from our investments, and our business also expects some results. So one of the obvious metrics is money, right? Another one, again, as I said at the beginning, context is a king. If I'm working on the website, I will be really focused on the nice UI and maybe response time, because this is what first customers are seeing. If I'm doing the engine, that actually it's like a backend system for other systems, I will be thinking, okay, my key metric over here, it's the speed, it's the response time, right? So it will all depend on the stuff that you are actually doing. So you have the requirements from the tree, and what you are doing in the room, you are discussing, okay, where to put the particular example of the requirement in. So let's say that I'm doing the ticket booking engine, and basically, let's say that I need to check, okay, what will be like response time if I add functionality ABC? And what will be the potential profit? Again, I can put cards, and then I can produce them in a way that I see where is my magical MVP, right? Because these are the tickets we in theory should do first. And then we can start thinking about detailing them down. Again, we need to use a bit of the common sense, because what may happen in the ideas over here, maybe this two-factor authentication I was talking about, maybe it doesn't bring that much of the, functionality improvements. Actually doesn't improve a lot in terms of the engine speed, right? It doesn't improve anything. It doesn't bring any costs. But if we don't do it, maybe someone will just break and get our customer data, right? So it's really risky. So we still should take it. So please apply common sense as well. Again, how it looks like in real life. As you can see, a lot of things are clustering up. So it's still we need to work and think, okay, how, if we shall do everything that is in our magical MVP list? The answer is still no. The third thing I'm actually suggesting is like really high-level metrics. Why high-level? At this stage, it's just trying to figure it out which tickets we want to transfer to user stories. Those are just ideas. So it's not really worth spending a lot of time trying to measure them, because first of all, we don't know how, and then it's really hard to compare. So again, let's have the example with the booking system and the engine. And let's say that we have the first idea that will be, okay, let's let our customer to book the ticket based on the color of the aircraft. Maybe it's some new trendy functionality that marketing thought about that will boost our sales, right? And then you think, okay, the database that keeps this color of the aircraft is actually behind the China wall. So our response time will be ridiculously low, because even if we'll be really happy if we can actually get the data in. And then maybe we compare something different and it'll be, oh yeah, actually maybe it's not too bad, because maybe we can actually boost the sales. And the third thing that we are measuring, let's say it's something around, again, performance. So what I'm suggesting is find 3 key things that you want to improve. So for instance, let's check if this will improve our response time. Let's check if it's boost our sales, and let's basically check if we have any demand from the customers. If all those 3 things are not really like making us more happy, then it's not really worth to do it. If all 3 are making us happy, it's worth to consider, and everything in between. So let's say that if we have 2 here, 1 here, So 2 makes us happy. Again, it's worth to do it. So that's why we need to have odd number to be able to differentiate, shall we take it or not? The question is, why 3? Why 3 key things? First of all, if we increase the number to 5, it will still work. If we increase numbers to 7, it will work, but we will add a lot of additional complexity. So let's keep stuff simple, make it quickly, and then once we have refinement for those key things that we already decided to take, we can revisit and make the metrics more meaningful. Because again, this is high-level thing. This is our feelings. It's not data-based. And after we'll deliver, and we'll have this assumption that, okay, this particular functionality should increase our response time by 20%. We should actually measure it and validate it. At this stage, it's more like filtering ideas to basically deal with the roadmap that it's too big and have like too many commitments. Okay, so once we have this, also it's really worth highlighting that when we don't have detailed requirements, or even if we have detailed requirements, but they are like written down 2 years ahead, our rough estimate will be wrong anyway. So I usually recommend at this stage, when we are filtering ideas, not focus too much about them. So that's why the metrics I presented were like smile-based, and they didn't have any numbers behind. I'm usually doing like engine and analytics. So me saying we shouldn't take numbers is a really serious thing. Okay, so how we can fix our roadmap commitment issues? First of all, keeping roadmap in a way that is not linear. Frequently I get the question at this point, okay, but we are not collocated. We cannot have the post-its. What we can do? We can do basically mind maps. They are maybe not in the tree shape, but the basic concept is the same, because you have also kind of branch structure. And it's easy to collaborate with the mind maps. There's multiple of tools that allows you to create like interactive mind map. This thing I usually do in PowerPoint, and also it works pretty nicely and in an interactive manner. So these are the key things that we can do in order to reduce the numbers of commitments. So first of all, not keeping in the linear manner, then try to reduce the things that we are actually detailing down to the meaningful number of tickets. Again, we can communicate easily to business, okay, your ideas are not being forgotten, they're in our roadmap, and we will detail them down in the next iteration or next time box. So again, this solves as well a bit of our backlog size issue, right? Because once we have the roadmap and once we decided what we would like to detail down, we can try to think about the optimal backlog size. And the question is, okay, what it actually is. So depending on the number of developers you have and the speed, some people do really sophisticated maths around, okay, what's our capacity? They are trying to figure it out, what is the development speed, and so on and so forth. The trouble is that frequently we don't have the data, right? Or maybe our team is changing. There is not many teams that have the luxury of having like static team all over the time, and the team members are changing. Also, if we have big project, right? So let's say that we have 5 teams. In every team we are like Scrum by the book, right? We have 5 developers and maybe 1 tester, 1 UX. But again, still, this is the big project, and if we want to keep the same measure for everyone, it's really hard to assess. So we try, and I usually recommend to try to keep it simple in terms of the backlog size. So if you have 5 developers, just assume that 1 developer will do 1 user story or 1 backlog item per sprint, or whatever time box is. Then have some additional stories in case the ones that are planned are blocked, right? So let's say additional 20% more, or basically if we have the team of in total 25 developers, let's have additional 5 user stories in case something gets blocked, and then figure it out together with the team how many of the stories ahead you would like to have in order to feel comfortable with picking up it for the next sprint. Usually 1 or 2 sprints ahead is like enough. So 25 people means like 30 stories per iteration, 2 iterations ahead, it's around 90 user stories. And again, with this size of the team, so 25 developers, 90 is still manageable by 1 or 2 people. Just imagine if you want to have it like few months ahead or a year ahead, then suddenly this size grows in a way that we still bother with backlog size, right? And it starts to need the army of people who are actually shuffling the tickets around. So once we decide what we are building for the current time box, detail this down and have like reasonable size. And then obviously this gives you as well the flexibility to change the tickets pretty nicely. Okay, and then there is the crucial question, because this talk is called User Stories Refactoring. We talked a bit of the backlog size, we talked about the roadmaps, but how about the user stories itself, right? So how to make them more meaningful, how to change the approach. So let's start actually with the questions, right? Those are really good questions to have. And we should answer them and try to figure it out, okay, why we are doing stuff. And frequently, we just forget about a lot of things that need to be answered around the technical things. Because obviously there is the business element, but frequently there is, for instance, additional things connected with like security, additional things connected with performance. Especially we have the troubles when we have a lot of non-functional user stories, or if we are building the engines. Again, I'm building analytics and backend things. So people frequently ask me, okay, but why are we actually doing it? We don't have end user as such. Our user is another system. So we need to think, okay, what is the performance, how we can reach it in a secure way, what's the encoding, what is basically a lot of other things that should be there. So if we want to go like with the standard persona approach to user story, the user story would look like, okay, I want to book ticket because I want to book ticket, which doesn't work, right? We need to think about, okay, what's the scalability, how we can increase the maintenance, all other things. A really important thing, once we start asking the questions, even before we start writing the user story, just write those stuff down in a way, in a bullets, just to have the overview of the things that we are doing. Again, if we want to improve, let's say, response for the booking engine, for the retrieving the ticket, again, ask, okay, what the database maybe we need to reach, all those technical details that usually are not in the user stories. Okay, again, another question is, okay, what we actually are doing? And here I also just maybe go towards more like technical example, because business ones are usually easy, right? I want to book ticket because I'm going to the holidays, so what I'm doing, I'm booking, right? But sometimes we have like the stories that are connected again with improving the speed of booking for my user, which is basically some booking website, so I don't really have the end customer. And I need to know, okay, if I have some refactoring there that needs to be done, that it's really hard, by the way, to explain to people, oh yeah, we need to rewrite our request to retrieve the ticket because it's slow. I know we have this functionality, but if we refactor it, it will get 20% faster, right? So we need to also answer those questions. Do we need any of these there? Maybe we need some spike because there is a new technology and we really want to figure it out if we can use it in order to improve our experience, right? So again, if we have speed as a crucial thing in our application, or maybe we have some even usability improvements there because we are doing the web-based front-end systems, maybe we want to use the new library and see if it's more new colors will attract more attention. So this also can be as what we want to do in the user story. Okay, what else? So also there's a lot of questions around those particular items that we frequently even do not ask. So again, my favorite example is actually integrations, because there's a lot of things that are business questions that we do not ask business because we just assume, okay, it's integration, they won't know. So again, going to the example with the airlines, and let's say that we have the dictionary management as a part of our user story, we should ask business, okay, do you mind if we suddenly change our dictionary, right? So let's say that code AB2 was Ryanair, and we change it for CB2. And maybe under CB2 previously was British Airways. So guess what? If someone is searching for let's say British Airways, and suddenly he'll get like nice low price, he get book, and then he'll get Ryanair ticket. Maybe not necessarily the best experience ever. So we need to know how we are managing the dictionaries, what will happen if one of our system is failing. So again, let's say that we are the backend system, but there is a front end somewhere, some website that actually gets from our engine the responses. So what would happen if we are down? Do they shall show our old results? Shall we have some maybe additional security things that prevent us to maybe sending the wrong results? Because let's say we are having issues with showing all data. Maybe there are some caching issues. So a lot of questions. Again, since it's a price, can we actually cache it, right? Maybe the price that was valid yesterday, it's not valid today, so we can't show it. Again, just imagine I'm clicking book my ticket for £20, and then suddenly instead of 20, I have 200. Because it was cached for a week back. Again, not the nicest experience ever. So we need ask. And on the other hand, if we have internal reporting system and we don't refresh data for a week, nothing will happen because maybe we retrieve the data from SAP that is refreshed every half a year. So there is no issue, right? So we need to ask and understand the business reason behind a lot of this stuff in order to be able to define them and narrow them down. And there is even more funny things. What we should do with, let's say, collisions in a sense that we have two systems trying to override the same data in the same time. Again, sometimes from business perspective, it doesn't matter because basically there is no need of having the most updated data and the real time. And sometimes it's again really crucial because if we try override the price, because let's say our airline is sending us the new price of the ticket, we really need to be able to do it. So those are the stuff that we really need to discuss. Another question is who. So frequently we are asking who is the user, but also in here I would like to flip it a bit because obviously we need to know the persona. I'm not denying, but we also should know who is actually reading the user story or the backlog item. Frequently, those are like data analysts, maybe some developers, obviously, testers, some business users, but actually, business users frequently are not even reaching out to read the user story. What I want to say here is we should focus on the format that it's clear for us. And we should agree what it is. If we want to have the format in the classical manner, fine. If we want to flip it slightly, that's fine as well, but we need to discuss. So in terms of formats, there is a lot of discussions because, for instance, some people say, oh yeah, persona, maybe it's not really relevant anymore. Maybe we don't really know what we want to do in terms of the action because, again, it's really hard to decide. And expected outcome sometimes is also a bit of obsolete or maybe too obvious. Again, example, I want to log in order to log in. Everything obvious. So the proposal that we can try to figure it out is maybe trying from the more situational perspective. What I personally encourage you to do is experiment between the two and try to figure it out what works for you, or maybe even try to find this user story that is ideal for you and it's tailored, and maybe it's a mix of the formats I showed. Because again, putting something in a frame doesn't mean that actually it automatically starts working. Again, sometimes you need to have more details, sometimes you need to have less details. One team I worked with really loved one-liner user stories, because they said, okay, we have anyway planning meetings when we discuss. We prefer, instead of spending stuff on writing stuff down, discuss it and then write the bullets when we think appropriate. Okay, so because I'm like running short of time and I have still a lot of slides to show, I will speed up a bit. Okay, so user story need to remove the ambiguities. And basically, my biggest advice is make it is cross-functional. UI stories and backend stories separate doesn't make sense. Just imagine you have a button on the screen, you click it, and you can't do anything because it's just displaying. Really doesn't have any business value. Again, size. This is a difficult one because we always say that we should be able to deliver it within one sprint. And guess what? Word is not so nice, and frequently we cannot make the stories of the same size. So I think it's better to just communicate, okay, this particular user story is bigger and it will spill over, and that's the reality. And just basically communicate to make it transparent and everything will be working fine. Again, if you want to go it to the more sizable, the same way, that's perfect. But again, especially if you build like algorithms, engines, and other stuff, you cannot deliver half of the price retrieving algorithm, right? You need to deliver this as a whole. Again, what is really important, having in the process embedded feedback loop. So sadly, we frequently don't have the opportunity to learn and measure. We just do build. Then maybe, even though we are agile, maybe we have some small opportunity to showcase stuff, but not necessarily have the feedback loop in place. What we can do with it, we can try to embed in our code some measurement system. So later on we see how the people are using, what are response time, and what are the data behind. And again, we need to ask our business partners, okay, we need to have a way of measurements. What is the stuff that matters to you, so we can track them and see if we're improving or not. Okay, so really briefly recapping this part. Remember user story, need to be clear, no ambiguities, agree with the team. Remember to have it cross-functional, because otherwise it doesn't bring any value. My favorite example is, let's say that we have the water and the glass. If we deliver separate glass, well, it actually doesn't meet my requirements. I'm thirsty, I cannot drink. If I have water without the bottle or the glass, well, still I can't drink it, right? I can't reach it. Only together, it makes sense. Similar is with the functionalities. And again, size, try to make it small. However, if you can't break it down, just communicate that it will take longer. Okay, returning to the beginning question of the part of the user stories, does the format matter? Okay, I'm business analyst. I should tell you, yes, obviously we should stick to the format and we should have the army of people managing the user stories. The truth is, no, if we communicated within the team and agree what we really want to have and how to remove the ambiguities. Because the true idea behind having a backlog or user stories is removing ambiguities and having clear goal. So whatever we have that actually accomplish this, that is really good. Okay, really quickly wrapping up, let's try to have like small roadmap, which is captured as a tree. Try to figure it out what we want to build first using meaningful measures. Again, do measures at the beginning, high level. Don't waste time on the too detailed measures because we'll be basically adapting anyways. try to figure it out how to measure stuff that you are building in order not to be in a trap. And again, even in the user story itself, we can actually capture the stuff that what are the learnings that we want to have. Most important thing, Agile is about adopting. And again, there is no one perfect way of doing stuff, so just try to figure it out your way. I hope that this will be the inspiration of how you can change your requirements gathering process in a way that will be basically meaningful for you. So I really hope that you will try down those. And again, do you have any questions? Yes?
Regarding your cross-functional user story point, how would you go about achieving that practically in, say, microservices architecture where you might traditionally represent one piece of the puzzle with a project? So how do you avoid having 4 user stories that tell the same thing spanning projects? You end up having a project which essentially encompasses them all and label them as completely part of it. Take a system like Jira, for example. How would you actually achieve that?
Okay, so you are saying that we have the project with multiple modules, correct?
I'm saying you might start with multiple projects, one microservice, for example.
Yeah.
Story encompasses many microservices.
Oh, so you are saying that the story is actually shared between the projects. Okay. So you have the dependency on this particular story, right? Okay, so in Jira actually, and in version 1, there is a way of linking the stories. So I would put one story in with multiple tasks and then link the tasks to particular elements in the different Jira boards. Or again, if it's version 1, then different projects in version 1. So there's like link issue thing in Jira that you can use. So I would do it that way.
So when I'm working with the engineers and we try to address some technical debt, a lot of questions I get is how long is it going to take? Give me some transparency. Give me some stories. So what's the best approach there? Should we deck out a set of stories and try and put points on them, or what's?
Yeah. Okay. So why even this question appears? Business doesn't understand, right? So for them, if they hear, okay, technical debts, oh my goodness, we want progress. We spend money for something we have no visibility, right? So the way we usually approach is having some measurements beforehand. So let's say that this technical debt doesn't allow us to build features on top, slow down the application, maybe not slow down because it's, let's say application is slowed and response time is like, 3 seconds or whatever. Try to define all those things and see, okay, where we can have measurements and what are the best guesses to the improvements we can see afterwards. I think the hardest is the part when we actually have something that says, okay, we'll be able to build things on top because it's really hard to measure, right? But also it gives the transparency. In terms of time, again, I would actually go towards like the goals that we will achieve after addressing the technical debt. In a sense, okay, we'll be able to scale. Maybe instead of serving 1 customer, now I will be able to serve 10 customers in the same time, and then assign the time that we need to accomplish this goal. Because if you even put the user stories there, which are technical, saying, okay, use different library. Guess what? People won't get it, right? They won't understand it. You won't bring the transparency. You will just scare them off. So if we just explain why we are doing it, then it will bring more transparency. And you can also ask, okay, why they even ask those questions, how much time it takes. Again, this is money, so they want to feel comfortable with spending them, right? So if we put them in a way that they can understand that it actually benefits the whole application, it's more easy to understand and see why we are doing stuff. Yeah. Yeah?
Actually, if there is no return on investment or reducing technical debt, why would we do it?
Well, I believe that actually it is. Especially, okay, So I think that refactoring, going for having nice and pure code, it's actually pointless. But if we are doing refactoring in order to be able to develop more features or improve speed, improve the quality of the stuff, then obviously there is a return in investment, right? Especially imagine, if we are at the beginning of the journey, we want to develop something quickly just to shorten time to market, right? Because we want to be first, we want to do experiments and so on. Then we discovered, okay, we had the wrong assumptions, so our application is not scaling, we cannot add new features, or even if we can add them, it will be extremely slow. So we can actually measure that doing change, for instance, let's say that we need to change our data model because we cannot add dimensions. By adding this new functionality connected with expanding data model or making it flexible, let's say instead of relational database, some NoSQL database, which is huge refactoring, right? We enable more flexibility and ability to sell to more people. Selling means more money. If we are internal and we do this kind of huge change with, like, let's say, schema change, model change, or so on, that allows us to add more features, again, we can say, okay, we cannot accomplish this requirement right now, but after doing this, which will take us, let's say, 2 months, and will cost us X amount of money, we'll be able to A, B, C, and D. So then business people can more understand why we are doing it, right? So I think there's always money incentive behind this kind of things. Maybe not always clear, but we can at least try to map it out. Yeah? Hope that answered the question. Yeah, okay. Any other questions? Okay, no, so thank you very much, guys. It was a pleasure. Enjoy your day.